Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mind Castle podcast. It's going to be a fun one. If you noticed, this feed went dead for a while.
A little bit.
Not too long, but, 6 weeks kind of longer, maybe longer. And the reason for that is Austin was in Mexico. Not, just randomly, but he was actually there for good reasons, doing cool stuff.
Exactly.
We were there for something like 6 weeks-ish.
Yep.
And one of the key principles or core principles of this podcast, well, there's several. One of them is always following the curiosity thread. We've talked about that some, and I'm huge about that because you never know where it's going to take you. And boy, we had some interesting ones last episode.
Yes, we have.
Another one is optimizing our brains, because the mind is very, 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 very important, and also health, just overall physical health and taking care of ourselves, thinking well, using our minds well, not just, So learning things, essentially. One of the things you've been trying to learn for the last while is Spanish. So you decided to go to Mexico and
actually
do it. So that's a little of what this podcast is. This isn't going to be a deep dive into all the dynamics of learning Spanish because it's very complicated and probably not really a fit for our audience. But it would be interesting from the perspective of learning new things. Like, how do you learn something new? What does it do for your brain when you learn a second language? Because I can't speak which actually, we've all heard the joke, right? Someone who knows 3 languages, trilingual. Someone who knows 2 languages, bilingual. Someone who knows 1 language, they're an American. So we fit into that camp for a while, and now I'm the only one in the room that fits into that camp. I only know 1 language, but Austin knows 2, which that's pretty awesome. So I'm not even sure where to start. Why don't you just tell us? I
guess I'll just kind of tell the story. Yeah. Well, before we do that, fun fact: I am now officially a polyglot.
That doesn't make sense. No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
What?
Apparently a polyglot. I argued with someone about this and Googled it. Apparently it is anyone that knows more than 1 language.
No. Well, I guess that would be the literal definition of the word. But
I thought it was more than like 10 or
so a polyglot, 20. At least according to our normal person definition, polyglot is people that go around collecting languages. They just collect languages for the fun of it. Which, fast fact, did you know Jackie Kennedy, John F. Kennedy's wife, was one of those?
No,
she spoke 8 languages perfectly. She was an absolute legend.
That's pretty cool.
Of language. Really? And was also crazy. Oppenheimer was another one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
He would just collect languages.
Yeah.
Just why not? Yeah. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Feels like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to have to think about that.
I don't know if I'm going to spread that one too wide.
You just put it on the podcast. It's too late.
Figured I would.
Anyways, hit me up. So Mexico.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by languages, cultures, and learning. And so learning another language is where all of this kind of collided. And oddly enough, ever since I was very young, I have been trying to learn different languages. I tried learning French. I learned a little bit of Italian. I started with Spanish when I was low teenager years. My friend started learning Chinese and then quit. So he kind of influenced me. And then we both started learning Spanish together. And just languages I've just learned languages for fun, or I've been fascinated by them. I never really learned them because it was through Duolingo and really bad services like that, which don't really teach you the language. They teach you, I don't know, it's just kind of
teach you some vocabulary.
They teach you vocabulary and context, but they don't teach you how to actually articulate it and use it correctly. In English class, you learn how to structure a sentence, and you have to learn that in Spanish too. It's that's one of the hardest parts about learning a new language, is learning all the rules with it. Duolingo doesn't do that. It's all trial and error. And so it doesn't work.
For context, Duolingo is a language learning app.
Yeah, it's the number 1 language learning app in the world.
Yeah, it's extremely popular. It's been around for a long time. I used it for a few things, and brute force vocabulary memorization, for example. It seems like it shines pretty good on that.
It's good with that.
Kind of like Rosetta Stone. Wasn't Rosetta Stone kind of a similar concept? A little different. They use a little more image based. But how far are you going to be able to get with that versus actually living in the culture that uses the language. I think
Exactly.
that was
Yeah.
some of your motivation, right? It was like, well, forget this. I'm just going to go to Mexico.
And for me, it kind of all snowballed. So last year I went to a Bible school and they were teaching Spanish because our tour was going to the Dominican Republic for 2 weeks and all of our songs were in Spanish and all this stuff. So they had 12 weeks of Spanish. So I took that and that gave me a really good foundation. Lots of vocabulary, learned the rules, learned, what I was doing wrong and all this stuff from my years before. And then we went to the DR and we, sang in Spanish and I got to use my Spanish there. And I was like, I could stumble around enough with it. And that's when I was like, I got back and I was like, man, like I'm kind of just stumbling along, like half learning this, like maybe a couple hours a week. And I was like, this is going to take forever. And I'm not actually going to learn it like the way it's supposed to be. So I was like, what if I just took 6 weeks and just like went to Mexico? There's a dedicated school there. You live with a family, no English. You are in the culture, man. Like that town, I was like one of the only Americans there. Like you just don't see other Americans there. And so really, really good location for it because there's no English. And so I was like, that actually sounds like a more efficient use of my time. And it also sounds like a ton of fun. And I had friends down there and stuff. So I decided to do that. So I left the end of last year. Well, not the end of last year, like mid-October, got back in December of 2023. I would probably say intellectually, it was the hardest thing I've ever learned. There's other things like skydiving that are physically difficult, like getting your brain to tell your body what to do and all that stuff. But then there's things that are like intellectually just like your brain hurts so bad. So yeah, anyway, I went to Mexico and moved in with my family there. There was 3 kids, kind of around my age, one older, one about my age, and then one younger. You might be familiar with it. There's an orphanage down there called Light of Hope Orphanage, and this Spanish school is associated with that. So the caregivers that come in, they stay at the orphanage for 2 years, helping with the orphanage children and stuff. And so they all have to learn Spanish. So they go through the school, live with the family, and then they go to the orphanage to serve there. And so they offer, this is basically the same thing. I just didn't go for the 2 years. I just went for the beginning portion. That means basically that like the families that you're going to live with are, from the church. They're like really chill. Like everybody at the orphanage knows each other. And like there's several Anabaptist churches down there. So it's a really good community as well. But anyway, so I had classes every day except Saturday and Sunday. And it was about 4 to 6 hours a day. So we would start at like 9:30 and end around like 2:30. So there's breaks and lunch and all that in between there. But yeah, it was very, very intensive learning. Cramming your brain full. I mean, just stuffing your brain full, which was super fun. That's basically like the overarch of what all happened down there. It was basically just rinse and repeat all day. And then, I would go back home after class and have to memorize everything that I'd learned that day. So hours of just like drilling it into my brain and flashcards and just, oh my goodness. It's more work than I've ever done in my life. But it was so good. There's so many things I learned, which we should really dive into that some. Like I don't quite know where to go with all of that, but I learned some really, really cool things through all of that.
What would you say would be some of the greatest benefits
of learning a second language?
Yeah, or you could say the whole experience holistically as well, or the benefit of knowing a second language. Like, what did it do for you? Beyond obviously the ability to now speak Spanish, of course.
So, okay, it's kind of like what we talked about in the last episode with like goals. Like you have these really big goals, like goal, learn Spanish. Okay. First of all, terrible goal. Don't ever frame your goal like that. Like, because that's impossible. Like you're never going to get to a place where you're like, I have now conquered the entire language of Spanish. Like it just doesn't happen. There's different levels and all this stuff. But so for me, I broke it down. It was like, I want to be able to communicate and express myself. I want to be able to understand and express myself in 95% of the environments that I'm in and be comfortable in that. I don't think I quite got there. I would say maybe 80 or 85%. But the greatest takeaway that I had from all of that was, oh man, there's so many things. Okay, first, like overall, it changes the way you see the world dramatically, because language is like the one thing that you've probably never questioned in your entire life that it could change. So you can be driving along and like get in a wreck, and all of a sudden, boom, like you might be paralyzed. Okay, someone's probably thought about that, and it's like you can kind of imagine what that would be like to live your life like that. Your life could change just like that. But it's really, really hard to do things or imagine things that expand your world, because we don't know what that's like. We think of things that shrink our world, or what we think will shrink our world. But something like a language expands your world to a whole nother level. When you can communicate and express yourself in multiple different ways, like there's just something so cool about that. It just changes the way you see the world. You see people differently, you see yourself differently, you process differently, you think differently, you build memories differently, like just everything changes, because now before you just had this one little slice of how you explained and understood the world. And now that slice is dramatically bigger. There's nothing quite like it, I would say, for reference. Okay. So like when you went skydiving the first time, okay. So like afterward or now, you might walk outside and glance up in the sky and be like, it'd be a great day for skydiving.
Yeah.
Those
clouds look so different from on top of them instead of below them.
It's like once you do it, you can never see the world the same way
because
again.
I think about it in 3 dimensions.
Exactly.
See, we spend our entire lives in 2-dimensional space.
Exactly.
On the ground.
Yeah.
When you start bringing in flight or skydiving, you suddenly start appreciating that 3rd dimension, the vertical dimension.
Exactly.
Which I think is why people are enamored with things like cities, skyscrapers. That vertical dimension. There's something deep in us that's like, there's a whole nother world out there. You know?
Yeah. So language is kind of like that. It's like you have one language, you have 1D, and you have 2D, 3D, 4D, I don't know. But you build on different levels, and it just changes the way you process and think about the world. Another thing that I've noticed dramatically is my memory is way better. I've always had a bad memory. My friends have always made fun of me for my memory. And like just being able to just like, boom, pull out a memory. So much sharper now. Like it is so much sharper. And most of that is because when you speak a language, that is what you're doing. I mean, that's 100% of what you're doing. And you get really, really fast at it. And you get really, really fast. Like now I'm fast enough that like I can be talking and I'm thinking in Spanish, and then I'm thinking of the word I want to use, and then I'm like, okay, no, but that's in the future, so I need to conjugate it like this. Okay, so I need to add this ending and say it this way with the emphasis on this. And you just like think of that like a word before you get to that word, and you just change all of it, boom, just like that in your brain. And like there's that speed is something that is just so much fun, like because it applies to other things now too.
Yeah.
Like your brain is just that fast now. Because you've trained it again and again and again and again 1,000 times. The speed at which I can pull things out of my brain is so much faster. But by far the biggest thing I would say is seeing people and a culture in a new light, because otherwise it would be totally impossible. Yeah. It would be literally impossible. You could not do it. There is something that it just changes your life. I mean, it changes your world, because you can now suddenly see the world through their eyes. And they can tell you about their world, and you can understand it in their language and the way they experience it. And it just totally changes how you make friends, how you talk to people, how you experience their world and their culture, the things they think are funny, and just like all this stuff is totally different. And it is really good. Like it is really good because it's almost impossible. I shouldn't say almost impossible, but it's really hard to be stuck up and learn another language, if that makes sense, because you learn to appreciate like there's kind of this thing with Americans where they go to other countries and they're kind of stuck up and like, you know, just all this like kind of rude and just like entitled and all. It is really, really hard to hold all of that. Like if you're learning another language, because a language is so vulnerable, like you have to put yourself in such a vulnerable state to learn a language. And you look like an idiot. I mean, you look so dumb.
You turn into an infant again.
Yeah, you do. And so then,
like, as if you don't know how to speak, you don't.
Exactly.
The basic form of human interaction is no longer available to you.
Yeah. And so whatever you felt like you could be confident in is gone. Like it's just not there anymore. And so any level of entitlement that you had, or pride, or anything that you any like preconceived notions about these people or the way they do things. Like it kind of just goes out the window. And like, obviously we try not to have that already, but it's kind of impossible sometimes because it's different and we have different ways of processing the world. Yeah, there was just so many things I grew to appreciate in a much deeper level because of that. And you just can't unsee that. Like when you finally get to like communicate and joke and just like talk and laugh and like see their world and hear about their struggles and all this stuff, you can never unsee that. And it is so cool. Love it. So cool. So all of that's about expanding my world. Yeah, basically. That's not really like learned. Like it's more just a result that came out of that, I would say.
Isn't this, it comes back to a lot of the same principles when we were talking, I forget which episode it was, but on the benefits of travel, like why traveling is a good idea, or like why we do it, or at least try to as much as we can, is I think something very similar, going about it in a different way, but exposing yourself to new environments and different ways of doing things is extremely healthy for us. I believe. I know some people don't, agree with that. They're like, no, don't travel, don't blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah,
that's bad.
Yeah. Like other places, bad. America, awesome. And it's like, well, I mean, yeah, there's a whole nother world out there. Don't you want to see it? And like, no, anyway, it's interesting having conversations with such people. But there's this concept of, if you draw a circle of your knowledge, say, and it's like this big around, really small, the amount of information you don't know is basically the circumference of that circle. If you're on the inside of the circle and you're looking out, that's like, that's all the stuff I don't know. Okay. You add something new that you didn't know before, like a new language,
right?
That circle suddenly gets way bigger of like, oh wow, like a whole bunch of other stuff that I didn't know was out there, I now know about. That's amazing. But guess what? Your circle expanded, but what also expanded? The circumference of the outside.
Right.
And you suddenly realize how much more there is that you don't know. And it keeps you really humble.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
If you're learning properly and being educated properly, however you want to say it, the more you know, the more you should realize you don't know, and therefore the more humble you should be. And what's really sad is there are some people don't catch that. They catch the more I learn, the more awesome I am. And they miss the part. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and therefore it should make you even more humble.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's interesting. If you find experts in whatever field it is, like take your pick, they are the experts, super good at whatever. Most times, there's been studies on this, the vast majority of the times, they're also the most humble. And they also tend to rate themselves and their skill level much lower because they realize how much there is that they don't know, even though they may be at the pinnacle of their career or their field or whatever. And I think that says something positive about learning well. Because we've seen times where people learn and think they've got it all figured out, and it puffs them up, to use biblical language, and turns them into a bunch of proud people. All that to say, to make the point of expanding your world, good idea.
Yeah.
And you're arguing that language learning is one of the best ways to do that.
Absolutely. I think it is the best way to do that.
Yeah.
Because when you learn a language, you learn a culture. And languages are alive. That's something my teacher told me the very first day. He said, languages are a living organism, and you have to feed it, and it will be alive as long as you know it, or it'll be slowly dying. And that always stuck with me because it's like, when you think about languages as a living organism that is changing and molding and adjusting, and like, yeah, it's pretty awesome. Like, you learn a culture, you learn a way of life. There's just, there's a lot.
So if someone's listening to this right now, like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Why would you tell them they should consider learning a language?
Learning a language is like the holy grail of learning. Like, I think that goes without saying. Like, it's one of the hardest and best ways to stretch yourself. So if you want to grow as a person, purely just because you want to grow, I think a language is one of the best ways to do that mentally, and also, like, kind of like what I said, expanding your world. I don't know if that would be mentally. I guess that would still be mentally, I guess, but it changes it changes your life in certain ways. The thing with all this is you're not going to learn a language just because, like, if that's your only reason, I don't think, or at least it's going to be really hard to, because you have to dig really deep to learn a language. Like, I hit rock bottom sometimes. I was just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. This would happen to me every single day at SMBI. where I was studying Spanish, like kind of like earlier on in the whole process, literally every other day or every day this would happen where I would just hit this wall of extreme frustration. And I just like, I'm not making progress. I don't understand this. I don't know what this means. I don't even like, I can't even see my progress. And then the next day would roll around and be like, yesterday that was like really foggy and like floating around in my brain, and it actually like sticks, and I've actually used it a few times, and it actually kind of makes sense. And the same thing happened in Mexico, except way more severely, where like you would learn a new concept and it would just like, it just doesn't work in your brain. And then the next day it kind of works. And then the next day after that, it kind of works a little bit more. And there's a level of like, it's important to see that pattern over and over and over in your life, where you come up against extreme frustration because you're not getting it. But that extreme frustration is oftentimes the last wall before you break through. And that's something I've learned again and again. You felt this in skydiving, guaranteed, because there's always that point where like, there's just that frustration. It's just like, it's not working. And that's usually right before it clicks. With language and with learning Spanish, that was almost every day. And so you start to begin to build this faith where like you feel that and you're like, ooh, I know what this means. Like, I know what's happening. I know what's about to happen. So I'm going to keep pushing, and you don't give up. And so that seeing that pattern in your life over and over and over is really, really good. But like I said, you need a deep reason like to learn a language. I would say you can't just be like, I'm going to learn a language, and no. Like, you are talking about the hardest thing you've probably ever done in your life. You don't just decide that on the weekend and just do it over the next year. Like, if you actually want to do it right, it takes a long time. We're like thousands of hours that I've poured into this. Like, it is not a small feat. And so that kind of bugs me when when people make half-hearted commitments to learn a language or something, and I'm just like, no, you're not going to. Like, no. I can tell you now, you're not gonna.
So probably the discipline that it requires.
Yeah.
That's like actually probably one of the benefits though too.
Yeah, I would say so. It's so multifaceted, the discipline that comes with it.
It also teaches a lot of patience.
Yeah. And vulnerability.
Yeah. And saying, hey, even though I can't see this coming together right now, if I stick with this, at some point my brain will come through. And
exactly. My brain will catch up.
Yeah, it will happen. Yeah. It's just, it hasn't happened yet, but it will.
Yeah.
That could be actually really reassuring, I guess, in some ways. I know a lot of people like, going to college, or especially in your grad school level, they feel a lot of this too, where it's like, oh man, I'm trying to do this PhD dissertation, and it's like a 4-year project or whatever, and you just, so many points there, I can't see how this is ever going to happen, but eventually your brain will get there, and you'll come through, and it's like, oh yeah, like, did that, wow, that was really hard, but I did do that, and that can be building, I would say, the proper kind of self-confidence, and not the kind of self-confidence that turns you all proud and look at how awesome I am kind of self-confidence, but the more that deep set confidence of like, no, if I persist, I think I can pull this off. Like, I can do this, but you have to be careful with that. But like in a way that's humble. It builds a kind of humble confidence, if that's a combination. I don't know. That's different than other people that don't go through a process.
It gives you grit.
Yeah, maybe that.
Like, it just gives you persistence and grit. Like,
and people who have the most grit tend to not wear it on their sleeve, or come across all, I don't know, at least in my experience.
Not normally, I wouldn't say.
Again, back to that, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know it, and therefore, if you do it right, it should actually make you more humble. Should.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think that was probably one of the biggest takeaways I took, that I actually like learned, was that when you hit that frustration, like that's actually a really good sign. And Andrew Huberman talks about this, but cortisol and like frustration, like the literal feeling of frustration, is critical to the growing process. Like, if you're not experiencing frustration, you're probably not learning. And I was like, really? Like really? Like, I did not really believe that. And maybe that's learning new things or learning really challenging things. I'm not quite sure, but there's that it's not going, it's not working, it's not, all this stuff. That feeling is actually really good, because it's your brain about to make a new connection, about to make a new path to make sense out of this.
That's what's happening, right?
Basically
at the brain level, whatever. Like
yeah,
physically,
because
it's
you
actually
have these
rewiring
connections.
some stuff.
You have these connections in your brain, and the first time it goes, it's like this tiny little line, and then the second time it goes, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. But yeah, the first time it's like literally like a kid walking. They're like wobbling and shaking and like can't do it. And Tony Robbins likes to say, how many times would you give your average baby to learn how to walk? Or you just like after 20 times, like, no, you're not a walker. Like, just cut them off. You're like, clearly you're not gifted in this area. Just quit. It's like, no, of course not. Like, you're going to keep trying until you learn how to walk. And I kind of like that because we cut ourselves off after a certain amount of time. And usually it's just, it just takes time. I mean, you just got to keep going and keep pushing through it. Tal vez necesito hablar un poco, entonces ustedes pueden creer que puedo hablar un poco. Maybe I need to speak a little bit, that way they can actually know.
Yeah, totally Spanish. Agree with what you just said. Yeah, definitely. Amen. Totally feel it.
Es muy divertido cuando juego juegos de mesa. It's very fun when I play board games with Jason.
Oh, yeah, because he knows Spanish. Yeah. That's awesome.
Cuando estamos en un equipo. Algunas cosas como haber, hubiera, cosas así. There's certain things like haber, it's a verb, es un verbo en español. No tenemos ninguna cosa así en inglés. We don't have anything like it in English. And para aprender eso, es un espacio en tu cerebro. It's like literally a space in your brain that you have to create to learn how to do it, because like es totalmente diferente. It's totally different. Entonces, para aprender cómo usar una cosa así, like to learn how to use something like that y cambiar dentro dos idiomas and switch between two languages, porque no tienes nada en tu mente para conectarlo. You don't have anything in your brain to connect it. Y yo sé mi español no es perfecto. Gracias. Just like learning something like that is so trippy because we don't have anything like it. Like using that verb, we don't have any equivalent. And so learning how to use that is like, what? Like you don't have any connection in your brain for that. Like, and so that's what I'm talking about, where like you can learn a language and express yourself and think in different ways because you've never thought about it in that way before. And when like that was a super fun example of learning Spanish with that verb. Like learning how to use that, because like using it's like hubiera, it's like the imperfect past, subjunctive. It's like, wow, what is that? Like we don't even have subjunctive in English, like or like we don't have a tense for it. Like it's not like you have to make an entire new word for it, and so like you learn that, and it's just like it's so rare to actually learn something brand new with zero connections in your like that you've ever made before. And so that's what I mean when I'm like, you expand your brain, you see the world differently because you literally like you've never thought it ever in your entire life, never. And there's something really cool about that. Yeah,
learning multiple languages does some pretty wild things to the human brain, like all kinds of good things. There's a lot of studies on this and stuff. Because you have to use your brain in a different way for communication, especially people that live in environments that often go through 2 or 3 languages in a day, depending on who they interact with. Yeah. They're constantly switching between different things, and they get extremely good at it, and they make it look so easy. But you're basically switching, not quite switching modes, but kind of close to
different.
It's really interesting. I realize that
it's really hard.
like Switzerland, for example, has 4 official languages. 4. That's insane. You know, so most people there don't necessarily always know all 4, but they're going to know probably at least 3 of those. And that's just wild. You know, it's got to be good for you.
Oh man.
I can't imagine. Anyways, that's kind of neat, but maybe the US will become bilingual or something and we can learn more than one language.
Kind of doubt it.
It's probably not going to happen. America's a little set that way, but I think it'd be good. It's good for you.
I wish that people would be more dedicated to learning something like that. Like I would love to teach people how to learn Spanish or something. Because it's so good for your world. And if you know English and Spanish, you can communicate with over half the world's population. Yeah. Which is like pretty awesome.
Insane.
So
and once you know Spanish, you're a short hop from, Portuguese, Italian,
Yeah.
like a lot of other languages.
Yeah, you're so close. Like,
The Portuguese sounds very different. When I was
Yeah.
Portugal a couple months ago, it sounded very, very different, but they said it's actually still pretty easy to understand. It's harder to speak. Like the pronunciations are very different. So like learning how to
Yeah.
actually say it is kind of hard.
yeah.
But understanding it is like not that difficult, which
Yeah.
is so cool. But
If I could snap my finger and people could know second languages, I definitely would. Like it changes your world
it's good for
completely. So if you feel motivated, tap into it, try it, but don't do it through Duolingo. Do it correctly. Like learn the rules.
actually go to whatever country and live in it and get good tutoring, like that kind of thing. Actually get contextual.
Well, I would actually say if you're going to learn a language, do your homework first.
Sure.
And then go. Because if you show up with absolutely nothing, you're not going to get very far in 6 weeks. These places where they're like, come learn Spanish in 6 weeks. It's not true. Like you won't, I'm sorry, but like your brain cannot really do that. You only have a certain level of neuroplasticity that's allowed. And if you show up with absolutely nothing, you're not going to get very far. Which is really sad because, the difference of showing up with having 1,000 words already memorized and then showing up and having 0 means you're going to go totally different directions because you already know how to memorize words and you already know how to do this certain stuff and whatever. So yeah, learn the rules first, like learn how to conjugate verbs, learn, what the infinitive of a verb is and the endings and all that stuff. It's really easy. Like it's super easy. Just Google it and start memorizing and figuring it out. That's all. It's mostly what a language is memorizing. So
yeah.
That's why most people don't like it. I think that's basically everything with all of it. Obviously, my experience there was totally different. Like that's more like what I learned and all that stuff. But the actual experience of living there and, not knowing how to talk to people and living with a family that you can't communicate with, that is a vibe. Wow.
Cross-cultural experiences.
Like,
it's very important.
Just living there in general expanded my worldview. And then
but
it was so cool, like actually being with the family though. It's not like you're living there on your own. You're like you're doing life with someone every day, and I don't know, that's just super, super cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I guess if there's a takeaway, intentional learning is worth doing.
So yeah, that's the main takeaway is like, just do something to expand your brain. Like, right. Like that's kind of the main thing. This is the avenue I chose to take. And I'm going to keep trying to find new ways to do it and maybe learn more languages and stuff. Yeah. I think that's the main takeaway is expand your worldview, expand your life experiences and the way you process information. It's really, really good. So that's going to wrap this episode up. Thank you so much for listening and check out my YouTube channel where I will hopefully be making a video about that. And I'll probably be making a YouTube channel in Spanish, hopefully, which would be really, really fun. And then everybody can hear just how bad my Spanish is. So yeah, anyway, we will see y'all in the next episode.